I spent so much time learning, and then by the time I learned, what I had just learned became obsolete. And
Yes.
just the model that my business partner is very frustrated because I keep adding subscriptions, but you
Yeah.
have to then play around with it.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of AI with Bry, the show where we deep dive into how to learn, leverage, and lead with AI. I'm your host, Brian Denstead, technologist, strategist, and someone deeply curious about how AI is reshaping our lives and our work. Each week, I sit down with a guest who's using AI in bold and practical ways. We unpack what they've learned and how they're putting it to work and how they're helping others grow along the way. Today, I'm excited to welcome Justin Goodman to the show. Justin is the co-founder and CEO of Total CSR, a company revolutionizing training in the insurance industry. He's passionate about creating scalable education models that empower agencies and their people to grow. With a background that blends entrepreneurship, leadership, and now AI-driven training, Justin brings a fascinating perspective on how technology can transform learning-heavy industries. I can't wait for you to hear what he has to share. Welcome to the show, Justin.
Thanks for having me on.
It's great to be here. I know we've gotten to hang out quite a bit in the past, and I'm so excited to have you on the show and unpack your foray into this AI world, because I know I was started on this journey, and then I think in one meeting you and I were in, you mentioned it someplace, and I was just like, oh wow, you're going down the rabbit hole too with me here. So talk to us about, in this like learn segment here, what has been like the biggest surprise for you as you've explored AI, and what have you learned recently?
I think the biggest surprise was I was so proud of myself. I spent so much time learning, and then by the time I learned, what I had just learned became obsolete. And
Yes.
just the model had already figured out how to do it.
Yeah.
And so that has been informative, because as I've been paying attention to things, it's realizing, and Sam Altman said this, he said you can either build the company assuming AI is not going to get any better, or you build your company and you use AI assuming the models will continually improve. And so I had to change my mindset there, and even how I approached learning. So approaching learning with AI, it's trying to keep my ear to the ground, but
Yeah.
also leverage resources versus trying to learn everything myself. That's been a big shift. The other part of it has been there's a lot of noise and there's a lot of what, but not the how that gets said out there.
Yeah.
And so what I'm finding is there's a lot of people hearing AI, you can do this, specifically when we're talking about marketing, but there's very few who are capable of the how, and whether it's explaining the how or doing it for you, and those people are at a premium. And so I'm one of those people where my hamster wheel only goes so fast, and
That's right.
so I struggle with the how. And so it becomes incumbent upon me, and even with our organization now, finding people that can do the how so that I don't spend the hours on the journey that I'm probably not going to get to the destination on.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah, I think you nailed it there, because it changes so rapidly month to month, even on that front, that you personally, I've seen it. You've gone through multiple iterations of laying out these tools, and I have to say I commend you on your effort, because it feels like you're on the forefront of it in a big way. Is there any tips or tricks, like how do you personally keep up with AI when it is changing so quickly?
Instagram.
Yes, any of those social feeds.
The funny thing is, so I'll use my social feed because I'm not really active on Instagram, but I like watch what my kids do. So
Yeah.
everything is different advertisements, and I follow the rabbit holes down. And then there's different like online communities. People have school communities,
Yep.
SKOL communities, right?
Yep.
And on automation. And so then I'll just start going to whether their YouTube channel, et cetera, and trying to get this information. And so then I'll ask a question, ask a follow-up question, and ultimately I'll then test out things. I think Jordan, my business partner, is very frustrated because I keep adding subscriptions because I'm but I feel like that's the only way to do it. Is you have to play with it enough to say, oh, if someone had this that actually had the knowledge of how to do it, we could be really successful here. But you have
Yeah,
to then play around with things.
absolutely. And I think that's an important thing. Like most companies have the tight purse strings on that front, and I feel like you have to have some sort of like experimentation budget to learn. You know what I mean? Whether you're given the employees the $20 a month for a GPT subscription, or you're letting them try out a Cursor IDE or whatever it is, like what's the right budget to let them get in and break stuff? Like it feels like it's almost like we have to go back to school again and relearn some of the things that we've been taught throughout our business careers. So I love that you've been pouring down into some of those subscriptions to play with it. I guess that kind of takes us into the next segment of the podcast. Really, is like leveraging, and you've been learning and experimenting. Like, how are you actually applying AI at Total CSR day to day?
The biggest example is with SEO. We had hired a firm that we paid $80,000 a year to work on SEO strategy, build outs, blog optimizations, briefs, you name it. And they're an incredible company. But through working with AI, I've been able to build my own N8N agent. Sorry, I said what I wanted to be built. I got it so far. Then I brought on an expert to make sure we got it the rest of the way.
That's right.
But it has allowed us to not have to continue with a contract of $80,000 a year. And now my ongoing cost is probably $75 to $100 a month. And so there's a big delta there. And we'll be able to do this at scale in a way that working with an agency we never would have been able to do before.
That's
And that
amazing.
goes everything, yeah, and that goes everything from looking at whether we've got to check against Perplexity for how Perplexity is indexing things, and so we want to have certain questions show up. It goes to building the actual written content, verifying the actual content, optimizing said content, so that we show up in not only search, but also the LLMs, which is its own different adventure. And what we have found is leveraging this strategy, we're now showing up and ranking faster than ever for terms, but we're not just showing up in one spot. We're showing up in Google's AI overview, but also images and also further down in the search. And so it's really helping us build a brand awareness. But the only way to be effective is to do it at scale, which means 30 blogs a month versus 3 blogs a month.
That's right. That's right. And I think people undervalue how wide of a field of content there is to get ranked in all those lower tail search engines and stuff like that. So that's amazing. I'm curious, are you using AI to improve the learning experience for agencies and their teams as well? Is there any forays into some of that?
Yes, so we're currently just shy of a product launch on a major initiative where we are going to be leveraging AI to identify those time frames where knowledge drops off. So there's actually this forgetting curve, and it's called Ebenhof's forgetting curve. And what it says is after 1 week, you learn 90% of what you learned the previous week. And so there are ways of identifying where those breakpoints are for knowledge and reinforcing it. And then also, once somebody is even having information reinforced, you identify what are they struggling with, and using artificial intelligence to identify where best to later hit them, at what frequency, what type of content works best, so that you can improve their knowledge base. And so that's our next big iteration, our next big launch. And there's so much to do there, and there's so many different directions we can take it. The problem is I only have so much of a budget, so much, but I've got lots of ideas.
That's right. I think that's the thing that I found with a lot of visionary types like yourself is that, I mean, even myself, I've got a long laundry list of 50, 60 ideas that I want to do with AI. And it is ranking and prioritizing those every week to sort of say, which ones can I try and chip away at? Because you can go fast doing it, but you can't do them all right now today. Is there any secret strategy you're using to prioritize the work?
I have a brother that tells me when my ideas are bad.
Nice.
And I think it's been helpful to the fact that whether I'm using Claude or ChatGPT or Grok, what I'm finding is it's getting to know me over time, right? Other than GPT-5, which frustrated the hell out of me and a lot of people, I felt like it was a step back. But it understands how I'm thinking, or at least I think it does, because it's answering me a lot better and asking the right questions most of the time. And so I'm finding that whether I'm trying to reach back to an old marketing piece or even what I said was a priority and I'm trying to work on, it helps me by going back and forth with the right questions and answers to identify where I should be spending my time. And I'm sure there's a much better way of doing it, and someone will build a tool for that or a better prompt, or if
Yeah.
something already exists. But that has been helpful because now there's this knowledge base. And I was with an actual insurance agency owner who had built his own model. He took everything he had ever written, every decision, all of his emails, and just made a database of information that he could go back to because he, like me, has a goldfish memory, and that's been helping. And I think for a lot of us, especially for entrepreneurs, we throw so much stuff at the wall that we have to have somewhere where we can go back and reach it. And if you were to look at my desktop, and if you were looking in my recycle bin, it's just a scattered mess. So there's got to be a better way, and it seems like the LLMs are that better way.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'll give a shout out to Side Coach AI. Their memory context, however they've set that up, is pretty impressive. And I've dabbled with that a little bit. And anything you talk to it or give to it, it remembers a whole bunch of context about your family, your work, your to-do list, and it's constantly trying to reshuffle and help you prioritize that kind of stuff. So I do think there's some amazing AIs coming out all around that particular principle of helping you get all your ideas out and then helping you prioritize and rank them in some fashion. So they're going to help us in tons and tons of ways. You've mentioned so many different tools in the past few minutes. Is there one standout tool that you absolutely love right now that you recommend everybody needs to check out?
My favorite is on the SEO side, which is Sonic.
Okay.
And that has helped tremendously, especially in concert with our AI agent. It does everything from keyword research to article writing to optimizing for keyword terms, identifying what those competitor terms are. So it's a second source of truth that I can compare against, like SEMrush. And their data in some ways is more accurate as far as keyword search than SEMrush is. And so it's been interesting before I go and spend time writing a 3,000 word article, even though I'm not spending a ton of time on it, I'm still doing some basic prompting.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole until I verified from a couple sources that, yes, there's enough keyword volume for that to make sense.
Absolutely. What a great idea. What excites you the most about like the future of AI, especially in the insurance space that you're in?
I think the ability for us to build content at scale, and by that I mean right now we have agencies that are using our custom learning path. And so they'll say, well, I need training on this. And so they may have a knowledge expert on the team, and they'll build out some rough thing in our online system, and it's good, but we can make it great. And so if we're able to take their knowledge base and say, we will now build this course, and by the way, just give us 25 minutes and you'll be ready for this, this self-paced learning lesson there. Now it's real-time learning, because that in our industry is what happens. A salesman, we call them producers, all of a sudden gets an opportunity on a large manufacturer. He's never done manufacturing, he's always done construction, and they've got some expert who had taught a course with a PowerPoint one time in their office on
Yeah.
and essentially we just suck that information out, build a real-time online course for them. Now they've got the information to go spend an hour working on that. And so that's the type of thing. Same thing with soft skills. There's just so many avenues, but I think it's the speed at which we can build courses to match the needs of our customers versus them having to wait 2 months, 6 months, 8 months, or a year, or hope. like so many in our industry, with insurance technology companies, you have lots of VC investment and private equity investment. Well, once that happens, we focus more on sales generation than value to necessarily the end user. And
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of people have to complain about the same lack of a training program before it will ever escalate
Yeah.
and or
Yeah.
the software problem, you name it. So all of those things we could instantly solve as we get better with artificial intelligence.
I love it. I mean, that is such a great reminder that like leveraging AI isn't about using every cool AI tool that's out there. It's about finding those right little fits and creating the real results that people want to see. You know, like the AI buzzworld's out there for everybody right now. But if you don't find that true tangibleness, I don't know if you'll have a business in 3 years because it's going to change so much. But
Mhm.
that's a perfect example of some real tangible assets there. So we jump into this leadership part next. How are you sharing what you've learned and helping others step into AI with confidence? I look at you and me as the bleeding edge of AI technologists out there in a good way, and they're looking towards us for help and advice. Do you have some thoughts for them?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things is I find that in our industry, that everyone's talking about it, no one's talking about the what, the how of doing it. So I was just speaking at an AI conference for insurance, and I was going to go a whole track and talk about change management in insurance as far as AI is applying. And some people who had spoke before me kind of covered 40% of what I thought. I said, how about we just go over prompts? You guys want to learn to write, some pretty compelling blogs. You want to be able to do X, Y, and Z. You want to edit your content in a different way. So those are the type of things where I see opportunities present themselves at
Mm-hmm.
but I think where the value that I get to bring is because I'm testing and playing with it, I'm able to say, try this product, try this product. Oh, this product's a waste of time. And we have been slow to release this information to our customers because we've not been the grace of having a company newsletter. And by
Yeah.
greatest, I mean we failed miserably at having that. But that is something we're going to be adding in there
Yeah.
because a lot of what it is just telling people, hey, there's a solution out here. And by the way, if your need is that small and finite, go to Fiverr, go to Upwork. You can find somebody who will do it for you, but you just have to think of that idea. And so I think there's a lot of noise out there, and we have to just consolidate the noise and sometimes just raise our hand and say, if it's marketing, this, and if it's efficiency, this product, test it out,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah, it's spot on, right? I mean, there's so many people that are just getting started in this space. Do you find that some agencies feel like they're overwhelmed with this AI thing, and are you helping them embrace it as an agent of change?
It's across the board. The scary thing is the largest organizations um, are investing heavily in this, which means the smaller agencies, we've got 40,000 independent agencies across the country in our business, and
Hmm.
most of them are smaller. If the big companies are investing at the dollar amounts I know they're investing, if the smaller companies aren't putting any resources towards it, they're going to be up a creek without a paddle. It's
Hmm.
also the smaller agencies and smaller companies who, for some reason, have more concerns about artificial intelligence than some of the large organizations.
Yeah.
And I don't understand where that necessarily comes from. Maybe it's the large ones telling them not to invest to
Yeah.
help with their mode. But the conversations I have and where I'm helpful is trying to tell people, hey, test it out, play with it. But what I find in our industries, and I think for a lot of industries, is people just want someone to come out with a product they can use. And the problem is, if you wait for that product to come out, then everybody else has it. Or you may be waiting 12, 18 months while a competitor who is savvy enough to come up with an idea and hire someone for 500 bucks on Fiverr has now been executing for 18 months at scale while you are waiting for this agency management system to build the technology.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very true. I think there's going to be huge paradigm shifts as people realize how much you can do with some basic building blocks in AI instead of waiting for your favorite software suite to roll it out the perfect way that you want to use it. So I do strongly encourage people to get in the sandbox and start playing with it and break some stuff in some fashion. You mentioned a whole bunch of prompts. I know I have a couple of my favorite prompts. What hit us with one or two of your favorite prompts that helps unlock the value, like you were given on stage, you said.
So there's actually a prompt I found through a Facebook group, and it literally is you enter in the prompt, and then it will then say, "I'm now your prompt expert." And so it's a better version. If you ask ChatGPT or Claude to improve a prompt, they'll do one thing. This is like that on steroids. And as
Wow.
soon as I did that, I was like, holy crap, the output I'm getting is so much better. And so instead of me learning how to be better at prompts, I just now have my little cheat code there to do that.
Yeah.
Another thing I've found that I like is the ability, so whether it's editing, whether it's ideation, it's just basic prompts on the marketing side. I want you to come up with an aggressive subject line. I want you to come middle of the road, and I want you to something that is a bit more benign, if you will. And so simple prompts like that, where you're saying, give me this range of answers, then leads you down a rabbit hole. But my favorite is the prompt that gives me better prompts. But I also use it for everything. I've got a book coming out in 30 days, and the subject lines, we do our book when I write them. In a lot of ways, it's a tchotchke at events, right? It's given away at trade shows. We do that, and then people, like, they ask me to sign the book, and some people actually read it. My brother's never read one, but this book is very tightly tied to the launch of our new Retain product, and the book has the same title, but my chapter titles were something that when the average everyday person opens the book, we're not going to scream out, go look at this specific chapter. And
Yeah.
what I said, and I basically had to prompt with OpenAI and Claude, was I said, take these chapter titles I have and make them so that if someone walks up at a trade show in a second, it says, this guy's an expert at learning and these innovative ways of doing it. And oh my gosh, if I go to one of these chapters, these are takeaways I can implement right away, so that we build that credibility. And so, so the chapter titles that I had that I thought were meh, and made it so that when someone opens this, they go, holy crap, this guy is very smart. And when we go first to market with this thing, the rest of the marketplace is going to have to reference my book and the people saying, oh yeah, Justin wrote the book on this, all because the generative AI came up with much better titles than I would have come up on myself.
That's right. Absolutely. I do that even with the podcast episode titles here. I say, give me 10 different ideas, and then I push it back into them and say, but which one's really the best out of these 10 ideas? And it analyzes it, and you have that kind of conversation with it. And I think I agree with you. That is excellent advice on making sure that you get the right prompt to build the right prompt. So I'll have to remember that one for sure. That's a great tip on that front. I think that sort of draws this to a conclusion to a degree. I mean, like you said, leadership is really about making it easier for others to succeed. And the books that you're putting out and the examples that you're giving are something that other people can follow and clearly keep doing what you're doing in this space for sure. Training is a crucial aspect for many, many industries, not only insurance. So I want to say thank you so much for joining us today. If people want to get in touch with you and find out more about what you're up to, or maybe pick up a copy of your book, where should they get in touch with you, and what websites?
They can find me at totalcsr.com, or if you ever have a question, Justin at totalcsr.com is my email address. The book will be live on Amazon and Barnes & Noble November 1st, I believe. But if you're at trade shows with us, you'll get it for free.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really loved hearing your take on learning, leveraging, and leading with AI, especially in such a practical and people-first friendly space like insurance. If everybody out there enjoyed this episode, please follow the podcast, leave a review, and share it with someone who wants to grow in their AI journey. You can learn more about Justin and Total CSR again at totalcsr.com, and I'll put a bunch of the links down in the show notes. Thank you again, everybody, for listening. This is Brian Denstead. I will see you next week. And remember, the future doesn't wait. Learn, leverage, and lead with AI. This episode of AI with Bry was hosted and produced by me, Brian Denstead. Produced with help from Nancy Velasquez and Kelly Lopez. Video by Leo Moralina. Sound AI generated. Find us on all platforms at AI with Bry and visit ai.bry.net for more. Learn, leverage, lead.